Be- Behold, children, for I am the Twitter slayer. I am destroyer of all that is fake in the social justice warrior world. Now, as many of you know, I have been the first journalist to be kicked off of Twitter, in part because I figured out how Twitter worked, and I figured out how it couldn't make money. And I used it to basically make a point. And what was that point? The point was that a lot of our media landscape is essentially controlled by a lot of people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And in story after story after story after story, I used my understanding of how Twitter's algorithm worked, something that I learned in part from reading this book by Nick Bilton, Hatching Twitter, A True Story of Money, Power, Friendship, and Betrayal, by a New York Times columnist. I highly recommend it. Check it out. Put up a link to it in the Got News in the podcast. Where to begin on this? By the way, we're going to have on the podcast the guy who accused Wesley Lowery of plagiarism, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Probably on Thursday or Friday. So get excited. I'm excited. Now, where to begin with Twitter? Well, I did tell you that this would happen. I did tell you that Twitter would be collapsing. I wrote a piece called Why Twitter is Overvalued, probably several months ago. And I did talk about how I was going to be suspended for journalism. And that's what happened. I was hit with denial of service attacks. I was essentially attacked for the simple fact that I was a journalist who was breaking stories that was difficult for Twitter's allies to handle. Now, let's just recap for the audience. I was suspended in May of last year for using the language that I was going to take out DeRay McKesson on a journalistic project. He used his romantic relationship with Jack Dorsey, which has been rumored and was confirmed recently by Azalea Banks, the crazy black rapper who threatened to have Sarah Palin gang raped on Twitter. I was, gone after in that respect, and I think it's a very exciting time right now because Twitter is collapsing. They have intervened on behalf of their user base, or they've intervened on behalf of feminists and Black Lives Matter activists, and they've essentially turned their property into a social justice warrior pack. And it's a star chamber. There's no judge, there's no jury. It's just pure execution if you don't share and toe the party line. Now, Twitter got powerful, got strong, just like Reddit did, just like Facebook did, by promising free speech for its user base. But remember, there's an inherent tension within all of these social media properties. Indeed, within all of media online, which is the tension between the readership or the user base, the tension with the advertisers who want a safe space where everything is kind of boring and antiseptic, and obviously the site itself, which wants to just get in the middle. And so this conflict, this tension within there, it's too insurmountable. And as the Fed raises interest rates, things get kind of crazy. And so what's happening right now is Twitter is melting down. And as I told you it would, this tension is insurmountable, and there's really nothing they can do. I mean, they could add more users. It wouldn't really have any effect. They can go and get more branded content. It doesn't really have that much of an effect. And you'll note, by the way, for all their talk of diversity, and Jack Dorsey loves talking about how diverse they need to make their board. They got a white guy named Hugh Johnston to be a part of their board who's from Greenwich, Connecticut. Now, why did they get him? Well, he was the CFO of PepsiCo, which is what they're hoping to basically sell you Doritos and sugary drinks, all of which are bad for you, over Twitter. Because, nothing says like, hey, I need a Dorito, like reading some tweets from, media celebrities that you admire. Now, Twitter's been collapsing for a while. We've talked about the fact that there are all these people who go on there and essentially harass journalists, who harass independent thinkers, who harass people who are different. And it's been a tool now of the far left to essentially shame people and force them into submission. Now, just so you know, Twitter is down 14% in after-hours trading to 15.25. The stock was at one time worth $74. Now, that's a lot of money to be down. I mean, that's a lot of money to lose if you rode that all the way down. Now, it's also a lot of money to make if you were shorting it, as I was when it was at $50 or actually $49 a share. And I've been kind of making it, I've been enjoying the decline of Twitter, and will continue to enjoy it as time continues. Now, look, I wonder how many of the early investors have jumped ship. I wonder how many of them have left. I wonder how many of them have gotten screwed. Did Chris Sacca, the guy who was instrumental in getting Jack Dorsey back on the board, Jack Dorsey, who, by the way, has lied about his past. I recently discovered that Dorsey actually went back to St. Louis and was actually working on a Craigslist clone, which failed, which was in St. Louis. It's called like saintlist.org. If you guys know anything about it, email me, editor@gotnews.com. Anything you hear from within Twitter, this is Twitter investors, Twitter people who used to work there. I mean, I knew the company was done when I had somebody go and research them, and he went in and found out that at 3 in the afternoon, they were all smoking pot and hanging out. And in fact, if you read Hatching Twitter, they talk about how they were stoned, there. So Peter Thiel wasn't speaking just metaphorically when he described the company as being filled with a bunch of stoners. Now, why does this matter? Well, here's why it matters. Essentially, social media was sold to us as a solution to the media problem, to the problem that media is having of actually generating revenue and actually making a buck long term. And it was sold to us as the solution, that it was going to solve all these problems. But of course, that's not how it's happened. That's not how it happened with Reddit. That's not how it's going to happen with any of these properties, that they're essentially lost leaders. Now, why is this interesting? Well, GotNews.com makes money on subscribers, people who pay me and pay my team money to research things, your research projects. We make money through donations, through people buying my book, and for people who work with me. And so my mission on here is to turn a lot of my viewers into subscribers or into researchers who work with me, either on a voluntary or paid basis. And so this is what I'm working on. This is like, this is where things are going. Now, there's a really funny thing someone just sent me. It says, what is this? What is this from? This is, I found a way into the website. I found a security hole, and this is, all right, so this is Jack Dorsey. So Jack Dorsey has claimed all sorts of things in the past. And interestingly enough, in a 60 Minutes profile, he admitted to committing a federal crime. This is what he said. He said, this is Twitter's Jack Dorsey confesses to criminal violations of CFAA, which I believe is some sort of hacking statute. And this is what he says. He violated the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. And he said, this is what he's quoted as saying. I found a way into the website. I found a security hole. And then Lara Logan says, "Is that the same thing as hacking?" Yes, that's what it says. So essentially, on 60 Minutes, Jack Dorsey admitted to committing a federal crime. So this is the guy who supposedly is going to save us all, and who's going to be leading the future of this project. Now, what else did he do? He appointed his friends to be the head of the Committee of Safety. He, went well out of his way to go after people and go after journalists like myself, like Matt Forney, like a number of others as well out there. And I told you that this would happen. I told you that we were going to come after Twitter. We were going to be insistent that Twitter would be crushed on behalf of free speech and on behalf of free speech issues. And this is essentially a fraudulent company. This is a company that has real problems. Robert Stacey McCain has also weighed in on this. McCain was kicked off of Twitter for upsetting feminists who are friends of Jack Dorsey's. So this is fraud. Like, this is, Jack Dorsey probably should go to jail with how he's been managing this company. Now, whether he will or not, that's obviously kind of difficult to tell. But we're seeing right now the eradication of what's been going on here, and it's quite interesting. I don't know what's likely to happen long term. My sense is that things are collapsing. Things are going to be continue to collapse. Looking right here at something that Howard Lindzen, who was the founder of Stock Tweets, something that he wrote. I guess this was a while back, and he said, let me pull up the tweet exactly. He said, this is a guy whose business was built on this. He said, and God said the idea is to enjoy Twitter as a product, not to own the stock. That's pretty much an indictment. We've got a few other tweets here that are kind of funny to read. By the way, it's not lost on me that everyone's talking about this stuff on Twitter, the decline of Twitter on Twitter, which is interestingly enough. But this is Matthew Keys. This is the journalist who, I guess he's going to go to jail or something for supposedly hacking. And he says, maybe Twitter has peaked and maybe that's okay. Okay, so now they're failing upwards. That's the plan. Obviously, Bloomberg News has a very good article. Twitter sales forecast estimates on bad advertising. And, look, this was totally predictable. This was something that I saw coming, that a lot of us saw coming, that, I made money off of in predicting that the stock would go down. By the way, for those keeping track at home, I've been correct on every single stock pick I've had over the last 6 months. Now, I'm just saying, I'm not trying to brag, but let's just be honest here. The reason I know this stuff is because I have very good researchers. We work very well together as a team, and we're constantly looking at what's fraudulent, what's fake. Now, Reason, which is not a website that I like. Frankly, it's a little too bullshit for me. It's always trying to signal that it's friendly with the left and with the progressives, and rather than just being full on libertarian and awesome. But this is what they wrote over there about what happened at Twitter with Robert Stacey McCain, who was kicked off for supposedly anti-feminist writings. This is what he said. Did Twitter's Orwellian Trust and Safety Council get Robert Stacey McCain banned? The prominent Gamergate figure clashed with council member Anita Sarkeesian, and now he's gone. Now that looks pretty suspicious to me. That looks pretty fucked up to me. But who are we to say? Who are we to say? It's difficult to tell. Well, we're going to have some more stuff in the near future up on Got News about Twitter. We're probably going to write some stuff. If you guys want to work with us on this, if you're an investor, hedge fund person, some of you guys have been reaching out to me, and I have a lot more to come. That's going to be quite exciting. I predicted Netflix. I predicted Twitter. I've been predicting them nonstop. The next one, by the way, in 6-7 months' time, the one that's going to have the biggest trouble is going to be Facebook. You heard it here first. Facebook is going to have trouble. Probably closer to 8 months now that I look at the spread. But it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be an exciting time to be alive. And we're going to have later on in the week, we're going to have the guy who unmasked Wesley Lowery as a plagiarist. We're going to have him on the podcast. We're going to start doing much more on air, talking to the listeners thing. I think Stefan Molyneux has that right, that we should be doing much more conversations with people on this podcast, and that's what I'm going to be pushing. That's what I'm going to be looking for into the future. So yeah, should be very exciting times. What replaces Twitter? Well, if only there were a company out there that was interested in being a place of research and where people could go and find out the truth of things. Oh wait, I'm making that company. It's called Researcher, or gotnews.com. And so looking forward to chatting with you guys in the near future, having a hell of a great time, and we will have more for you guys soon. Thanks again for listening, and gonna have some good stuff for you this week. So take care.